I now have the honor of introducing our next speaker. He is the founder and managing director of K. Wright Consultancy. Specifically, he's a procurement expert. My words, not his, but we'll go with that. And he's here today to talk to you about toxic rebates, what they are, how you can avoid them so that you can best align with your trading partners. Please welcome Keith Wright to the stage.
Thank you very much. Well, firstly, no pressure following the captain of the rocket ship Enable, right? Who I saw on LinkedIn had a record Q3, so I think that deserves a round of applause for Enable. I mean, what an amazing performance. It's interesting listening to Sean about Andrew's passion for rebates. So I know I'm going to say something, and I know what you're going to say, right? So I've been in procurement for 30 years. Now, I know you're thinking, wow, Keith must have started when he was 5, because, I mean, look how young I look. But seriously, so 30 years in procurement and in business, and I've probably done thousands of deals. I've probably seen hundreds and hundreds of suppliers around the world. And what's really interesting, and for the last 3.5 years as a consultant, is I've been on the inside of many businesses. So I've looked at manufacturers, I've looked at merchants, distributors, all sorts of organizations. And there's 2 things when I go through the slides that I want you to think about. The first thing is, I've seen an awful lot of complexity. And the second thing is, I've seen an awful lot of inconsistency. Now, if there's anyone sat in the audience that says, my business has got no complexity, I've got absolutely everything done from a consistency perspective, A, I think you're probably lying, but B, you can probably have a nap for 30 minutes. But when you think about that, when I go through the slides, I would dare say there's a lot of things that you will see in your business that hopefully will resonate in terms of these slides, that think about that complexity angle, and also think about that inconsistency angle. Now, what I'm going to talk about, and I'm very conscious I'm at a rebate strategy conference talking about toxic rebates. So Andrew, there is a happy ending to these set of slides, right? So this isn't about undoing rebates. But the 5 things I want to talk to you about, so I want to calibrate what I mean by a toxic rebate. I want to talk about how we can tackle them. I want to talk about and introduce this thing called a relationship ecosystem. Bring that back together and just show you what I call the 11 points of failure, which are very easy to get 1 wrong, let alone potentially all 11. And then how this is all going to beautifully come together at the end in terms of this power of alignment. So I'm really passionate about if you bring all these things together, get your rebate strategy aligned to how you manage your suppliers in supplier relationship management, then that is a beautiful thing. It's very rare, but it is doable, but it is a beautiful thing. So what do I mean by toxic rebate? So being an Englishman, I did this in Boston actually, and it was quite rare to be an Englishman on stage. So talk about toxic. So right, this isn't about harmful to life. We're talking about rebates. Although I made this joke with Nick Rose, I can't see him in the audience, about we worked together at Travis Perkins, and we did have some quite heated debates pre-Enable, I hasten to add, about rebate management. But this is about harmful. So when I think about harmful, this potentially is driving wrong behaviours. And I also asked ChatGPT, so I'm on the same link as Andrew with AI. But think about harmful. So think about relationships. Think about the environments that potentially toxic rebates may create. Think about the negative impact on a business if you get these things potentially not right. And you think about the stress or conflict in terms of getting these things misaligned. So that's that element of toxic. And when I think about this in terms of all the deals I've seen, all the different types of supply relationships I've seen, take that first point in terms of complexity. Now, we've got in the room probably the greatest minds we've seen in terms of rebate management. But it's not a sport, right? It isn't about creating schemes to try and outwit the greatest engineers in Enable, right? Yes, it might be fun, but this is about keeping things quite simple. I mean, how many did you say, Andrew, you'd come up with? Is it 50 or something, schemes? I mean, come on, if we can't pick from 50, what are we doing? So there's a big element here in terms of, do we really need that level of complexity? And when you think about that, I don't know who's in the room, probably procurement, supply chain, finance people, the admin, the disputes, the transparency, who's got access to some of this information? And you can really clog your business up in terms of all of those inconsistent things. Then think about size and scale. Again, Andrew referenced there's businesses that make more rebate than they do operating profit. Does it really need to be that extreme in terms of that? How much cash is tied up in rebates that could potentially be invested back into the business? The next two, sort of off the books and secret, again, I've learned a few things. Perhaps I was a bit naive in the first part of my career, and I've learned a lot going into businesses about sort of the dark arts of rebate management, things that are off the books, that even don't fit, systems such as Enable, that are on secret spreadsheets or in the bottom drawer of the category manager. There might even be side deals. They don't even exist in a contract. They're so secret. And again, I'm not here to judge how you as a business want to operate. My sort of challenge here is that driving the right behaviour? Is that really what you want to be achieving as a business? And then it comes back to that wrong behaviour. I was talking to, where's Ed? I won't mention which business you were talking about last night, but we were talking about stocking up. I've got a confession. I had more landscape in stock at Christmas than what I did at the start of the season with some of the deals. And Ed and I were talking about filling up warehouses and outbuildings and all sorts of things. So you think, is that driving the right behaviour? Are we driving an organisation here that's more about stocking and stocking up than actually selling out? I had a great conversation with a manufacturer just a couple of weeks ago that said, actually, I know if you sell more, you're going to buy more, which is absolutely the right behaviour. It's not about driving stock in for the sake of just hitting targets, although, again, I'm not naive. Sometimes, you have those things to do. And are we masking costs? Have we got negative margins? Are we making bad decisions? There's two types of real bad decision that I think about. I've got kind of a customer comes in, wants to buy something, I don't know, come from a merchant background, branch manager makes a decision, doesn't take the order because they think it's not profitable. Not a great decision when it actually was profitable. Conversely, has a bit of a flyer, takes the order, and actually finds out that they were probably losing money. Both of those situations clearly is not good business. But it comes back to how are we masking things, how are we showing people information, how are we actually driving the right culture in terms of behaviour. Now, the good news is you can fix some of this. Now, again, the great news is with a system like Enable is you can probably put a huge amount of complexity in and it makes it easier for you in terms of how you manage it. But you could make a pact. You could make a pact that you're never ever, if there's any buyers in the room, never ever going to make your deals more complicated than they are. So you could say today, that's it, I've had enough, right? We're making a pact as a business. We're going to start to at least not make it worse, but potentially then over time start to make it less complex and just start unpicking some of that size and scale and complexity. This balance of how much is guaranteed versus targeted, it's interesting again listening to how much cash flow can be improved when it comes to balancing some of those rebate numbers. But can you start to just, again, over time, rebalance what is really leveraged and not guaranteed to what's actually coming through in your business? And again, back to number sort of 3 and 4 on here, this stuff around off the books. I mean, come on, do we really need to have a little sneaky black book? Can we make things far easier in terms of how we're actually managing those deals? And do we even need to consider the role of side deals? I had an interesting conversation on this when I was on the stage at Catalyze in Boston with a lady who couldn't quite get her head around what we meant by side deals. So look, again, I'm not here to judge. What I'm suggesting is be transparent. If the deal doesn't work for you, that's okay. Say the deal doesn't work, go and create your own deal, but secretly doing deals, ethically, I just think there's a bit of a challenge about how we might want to think about that. And the last one I love, so this thing about wrong behaviour, I mean, who here has actually got all the different functions in a room and just had a debate about what's working or what isn't working? Because we'll all have a different interpretation of whether rebates are working and the role that rebates play in our businesses. So whether you're in the sales side, whether you're running businesses, whether you're in a central function, a finance team, to get all those people together and say, look, what is the solution here? How can we make that better? How can we make it easier and more aligned for our business? So let's move on to the second part. So this is what I call a relationship ecosystem. Now, I'm a self-confessed procurement anorak. I love procurement. I've, as I said, worked with businesses, worked with suppliers for many, many years. And the thing I find frustrating is when we're not really clear about the expectations when we're working with suppliers. And vice versa with suppliers in terms of their customer base. And these 6 things, so I'll come on to it in a second. I've got a scorecard that I developed, which I now use with my clients. And the 6 things I call out, so you've got service level agreements, business plans, how we meet people, so the meeting cadence, how we think about targets and objectives, how we forecast, which is definitely a dark art in builders merchanting, and this thing around measures and accountabilities. And if I just flick through these, so basically it's a scorecard, it's a free scorecard, it takes 2 minutes, but it gives a really good insight to me in terms of how a business is thinking about their procurement strategy. It's a very simple question. So a service level agreement, an SLA, do you have one? That's a really basic question. Do you have a service level agreement? And equally, do you have a contract, right? You'd be amazed at, and I'll show you some stats, real live data and insight, how many businesses don't do those basic things really well. Business plans. You probably hear from some of my words when I talk, I'm really passionate about being really clear about what our expectations are. So from a business perspective, do you have some category plans? And guess what? Are they aligned to the objectives of the business? It's not a question of just having a plan for the sake of it. Is it underpinning your business objectives too? The piece around meeting, again, I'm not here to judge how often you meet or who you meet. My suggestion is you've got a really clear plan and you stick to the plan. If you want to meet people monthly, quarterly, yearly, I know this might sound really basic, really simple, but it's back to that rhythm of how you're operating as an organisation. And importantly, are you meeting the right key decision makers? If we go back to what I mentioned earlier, in terms of getting all the people in a room across your organisation, are those right people meeting? It's not just a salesperson with a buyer. Are your marketing teams meeting each other? Are you aligned in terms of supply chain? You've got the right people thinking about how they operate together. Targets and objectives. Are we, well, again, have you got any? I'm not looking for hundreds of things here. Have you got 3, 5, 10 really clear things that you've done together? It's not about me as a buyer saying, these are the things I want, or the supplier saying, these are the things I want. It's saying collectively, and Andrew, you referenced it in your presentation, these are the things that are going to move the dial. These are the things that are going to set us apart in terms of success. And then guess what? Do they link to your category plans? Are they clearly understood? Are we reviewing them regularly? Are we doing those things over and over again to make sure we're checking in on the things that are going to move the dial? Forecasting. Now, I would say this is perhaps an area that is definitely an area of opportunity. I don't know how many manufacturers we've got in the room, but I think as a former customer, yes, it's difficult, but again, it's back to expectation. You know, no one wants to guess. Because if they guess, and we've had some very extreme conditions over the years in terms of supply and demand, you're going to get it wrong. A forecast will be wrong, but hopefully it's more informed than if you don't have any sort of forecasting. And again, how agile is it? How relevant is it? Is it being reviewed in the context of your performance? And in measures and accountabilities, again, who is going to deliver the things that you're agreeing as a customer and a supplier relationship? Who's on the hook? And when are you going to do these things by? And how are we holding each other to account? So these are the questions. Now, put that at the heart in terms of that supplier relationship ecosystem. This is the market data, which every time I look at this slide, I'm convinced I've got the numbers the wrong way round because they're so poor. Or, put it the other way, what an opportunity to improve this because it is massive. So if I look at the number, so this is basically real businesses, real leaders of businesses that have answered these questions over the last 3 or 4 years, saying whether they do or don't do them. So the best case is the SLA and contract. So roughly half of the businesses I've seen and worked with, and these are everything from SMEs right through to big companies, said they have them. So 1 in 2 businesses. Still not very good, but it's the best. It all goes downhill after this. This is the best number. Business planning, 85% said they don't have any or only have it in some very small instances. Comes back to meetings, 85, targets and objectives, 79% said no. Forecasting, 90% said no. So, I mean, all those manufacturers in the room, I hang my hat to you, because I don't know how you manage your business when so few of your customers actually know what they want and communicate to you about what they want. And in measures and accountabilities, just 72% said no, so 28% said yes. So I don't know about you, but I look at that data and I do recheck and think, wow, what an amazing opportunity for businesses to think about all those different components about how they come together. Now, imagine a world, 11 points of failure, where you've got one of those things incorrect, let alone 2, 3, 5, 11. How do you drive success and consistency in a business that maybe has really complex rebates, maybe has some wrong behaviors, maybe doesn't quite align themselves to their customers or their suppliers? Think about all those little individual points that go wrong. We talk about marginal gains. I think there's millions in here. And in fact, I can prove it. I've done some work over the summer, actually, two SMEs that scored, in fairness, worse than those numbers on the scorecard. And it was almost 6% that I identified by strategic rebate management, working better with their suppliers, doing things in a professional manner. And this is, okay, starting from a relatively low base, but I was like a kid in a sweet shop. I thought, this is amazing. Oh, what an opportunity. Imagine if I could put 6% on your bottom line, just not literally like that. I'm not a magician. But, if you could do that by thinking about these areas, I mean, that's massive. And that's the value of professional procurement with a strategic rebate management system and being absolutely clear and absolutely focused. That's what excites me, and that's why I'm so passionate about procurement being such an opportunity for businesses. So imagine the healthy beating hearts. This is the good bit, Andrew. This is when it comes together. So imagine you've now got a rebate structure, a strategic rebate structure, a strategic rebate management that is the healthy beating heart of all of those supplier relationship pieces. Again, I'm not suggesting you need to do this with every single supplier. Some of you might have hundreds, if not thousands, of suppliers on your books. But I don't know, look at Pareto. Is that 50? Is it 100? If you could get that right and get the engine room really working for you and really consistent, again, whether it's 6%, 10%, I think the numbers are huge. So imagine you've now got service level agreements. You've got a wonderful system here. It's got claimbacks or SPAs. You're really clear in terms of the expectation. The business plan's working for you. The targets and objectives are in place, and you don't get to this time of year, which was always quite interested in my former PLC life, where you're knocking on suppliers saying you owe us a rebate. And oh no, I didn't plan for that. You're not meant to hit that number. That's not going to help me. So this is about being transparent. It's about driving the right behavior. So again, imagine a world where it's not a surprise because you've been working all year, you've been really clear on it, you're meeting the right people, you're delivering the right numbers, your forecasts are broadly correct. And then back to this measures and accountabilities, that again, it's not a surprise. So it's a really healthy ecosystem that is beautifully working. That's it. Now, I've probably got 2 minutes actually. I've got an offer for you actually. So anyone in the room that wishes to take the free scorecard, there's no catch. It's on my website. We'll circulate some details. I actually published a book in March, which was very generously sponsored by Team Enable. I will give anyone a free copy of my book. If you don't like it, you can give it to someone as a Christmas present, maybe. Then take the free scorecard. It gives you a free insight into your business, and I'll give you I'll even sign it if you want. That might devalue it, but I'll get your details, and you can have that as an offer for being so attentive to my presentation. Right, we've got 2 minutes before a break. Is there any questions? If there's any easy ones, great. If there's any difficult ones, I'm going to sit down. Anything from around the room?
In terms of the heartbeat, what do you think is which area do you find the most resistance?
Let's go back. Can I go back? No, I can't go back.
In terms of the SLA?
To be honest, I'm not sure there's resistance. I just don't believe it's done to the professional consistent level that I think is available. I think it's very easy for businesses to get distracted with just doing the day job. But to me, this is the day job. So I don't think it's necessarily resistance. I think it's just focusing and getting the right people to be aligned on those things that really make a difference. That was a nice soft question, thank you. I'll give you that tenner in the break.
How do you persuade suppliers to
Well, I think it's the other way around. I think this is, to me, and I'd always like to be held to account. I think it's this isn't a spectator sport in business. You have to be aligned. You have to have skin in the game. You have to be, I think, collaborative in the approach. So I'm not sure. Go back to my trading days, that I was perhaps held to account from manufacturers to say, look, we really want to help you, but this is the insight we need. Because again, you're manufacturing product, you must have your own forecasting. The question is, how is it informed? So I would be encouraging, in my own humble opinion, suppliers to be far more, I'd say demanding, but again, it works both ways. I'm quite happy to be held to account in terms of that. Maybe not everybody feels that's as appropriate as it could be. Everyone's just thinking, shut up, I want a coffee. Okay. All right, brilliant. Thank you.